Welcome to Decoded. Today we're diving into a fascinating question. Why don't poor nations simply print more money to get rich? It seems like a straightforward solution, but the reality is far more complex. Let's uncover the layers of this economic enigma. And before we dive into the reasons why printing more money isn't a viable solution, let's first understand how much currency a nation can print and what factors determine this amount. A nation's central bank is responsible for issuing currency, and they don't just print money based on whims. The amount of currency printed is primarily influenced by the country's economic activity, which is measured by gross domestic product, or GDP. GDP represents the total value of all goods and services produced over a specific time period. So what exactly is GDP and how is it calculated? GDP is calculated using three main approaches: the production approach, the income approach, and the expenditure approach. The production approach sums the value added at each stage of production. It's the market value of final goods and services. The income approach totals the incomes earned by individuals and businesses, including wages, profits, and taxes minus subsidies. The expenditure approach adds up all expenditures made in the economy, including consumption, investment, government spending, and net exports minus imports. To get a comprehensive GDP figure, economists typically use the expenditure approach, which is often represented by the formula, where C stands for consumption, I stands for investment, G stands for government spending, X stands for exports, M stands for imports. When a nation's GDP grows, it indicates an increase in economic activity, which might justify printing more money to support this growth. However, if the money supply increases faster than GDP, it leads to inflation. This is why central banks monitor GDP closely to ensure the money supply aligns with economic output. Central banks also consider other factors, like the demand for cash. This varies with the level of transactions in the economy and the existing money supply. Inflation targets help ensure that the amount of money in circulation aligns with a goal of maintaining stable prices. Foreign exchange reserves are another critical factor. These reserves, which include foreign currencies, gold, and other assets, provide a buffer to support the national currency's value. Countries with substantial reserves have more flexibility in managing their money supply without causing drastic inflation. With these considerations in mind, central banks carefully balance the money supply to support economic growth while preventing inflation from spiraling out of control. But what happens if a country decides to ignore these principles and prints excessive amounts of money? To understand why printing more money isn't the answer, we first need to grasp a fundamental economic concept: inflation. Inflation occurs when the supply of money in an economy grows faster than the economy's ability to produce goods and services. When a country prints excessive amounts of money, it devalues its currency. Think of it this way: if everyone suddenly had twice as much money, the value of that money would drop because there's no corresponding increase in the availability of goods and services. This is inflation at work. Let's take a look at a historical example. In the 1920s, Germany experienced hyperinflation. The government printed massive amounts of money to pay off war debts and stimulate the economy. The result? Prices soared out of control. A loaf of bread that cost a few marks in 1921 shot up to billions of marks by 1923. People were carting wheelbarrows full of money just to buy groceries. This brings us to the critical point: trust. A currency's value is based on the trust and confidence people have in it. When a government prints excessive money, it erodes that trust. People start to lose faith in the currency's value, which can lead to a vicious cycle of inflation and economic instability. Now let's look at a modern example: Zimbabwe. In the early 2000s, Zimbabwe's government printed large amounts of money to finance its involvement in the Congo War and to counter a declining economy. By 2008, hyperinflation had spiraled out of control, reaching an astronomical rate of 79.6 billion% per month. The Zimbabwean dollar became practically worthless, and the economy collapsed. Another key concept is the relationship between money supply and economic output, measured by gross domestic product, GDP. When a nation's money supply increases without a corresponding increase in GDP, it doesn't create wealth. It merely devalues the existing money. Genuine economic growth comes from increased productivity, innovation, and investment, not from printing more money. In conclusion, while printing more money might seem like a quick fix, It leads to long-term economic problems like inflation, loss of trust in the currency, and ultimately, economic instability. Thanks for watching. If you enjoyed this video, don't forget to like and subscribe to Decoded for more deep dives into the world of economics, history, and technology. Until next time, stay curious.